So I think let's start with just everybody introduce yourself and sort of tell us your story, who you are, what your company does, and we'll go from there. Yeah, I'll start with you, Chad.
I'm Chad Dickerson with Etsy. We're an online marketplace for handmade vintage items and craft supplies. We've been running since 2005. We're based in Brooklyn. Been around for 9 years. Last year did 1.35 billion in sales across the marketplace.
Wow, it's a tough act to follow. Hi guys, I'm Jeff Rader, the founders of Harry's. We're a brand of shaving products. We make our own razors, razor blades, and shaving cream. Sell products of really high quality direct to customers on our website, harrys.com, at really affordable prices, and try to give them a better overall shaving experience than they're used to. We launched a year ago, have about 40 employees here in New York, and then we purchased the factory that makes our razor blades in Germany and have a little over 400 employees there as well.
Yeah, I'm Cornelius. I'm founder of a company that was one of the copycats that probably was not so lucky when selecting the target. As it turned out, in between. Now I'm very lucky about what we picked. I cater for pets, so whoever remembers pets.com, it's still treated as one of the worst IPOs ever. It's treated as one of the biggest failures of the internet industry as such. We made it work, not only in Germany, but we made it work all across Europe. And by now we do 700 million euro in sales, catering for dogs and cats all across Europe. That's my business.
I'm Stefan Winners. I'm on the board of Hubert Burda Media, in charge for our digital assets, for the strategical assets. Paul, I don't know whether I can say the revenues because we haven't published them yet, but last year we made 1.4 billion on our strategic assets in euro revenue.
So I'm David Nussbaum. I'm the CEO of F+W Media. It's probably a company you have not heard of unless you're a quilter, a sewer, or a designer. Our company is one of the companies that has transformed from a traditional media company. We have brands that go back 100 years to becoming a digital e-media and e-commerce company.
Okay, so the title is vertical businesses, and I guess I'm just sort of curious about the attraction to that business rather than going more broadly. And I think we should start, Cornelius. I mean, I think your story is interesting. Why just pets, and why focus on, laser focus on one?
Well, I'm not going to bullshit you at that time of the day. Basically, the company was set up because 4 of the founders wanted to get rich as soon as possible, and 1 of the founders wanted to get out of consulting. That was me. In fact, the company picked a market which turned out to have specifics, which in the course of developing the business turned out to be, well, the major winner. We picked a category which is easy to emotionalize with the customer. We picked a category which is a repeat demand cycle business. So whereas other companies are acquiring transactions, we, with each new customer, start a customer journey of up to 100, in some cases even more transactions. And lastly, all business-to-consumer models benefit from the simple fact that consumers are plenty. They're very predictable in their behavior. They're not cyclical. In fact, even niche markets like the pet market are very large niches if you look at them on a global scale. It's $120 billion spent on pets annually, so it gives you plenty of room to grow basically forever. That's why we love consumer businesses.
Sure, and so Jeff, let's talk about your history in the vertical space. I mean, you were one of the co-founders of Warby Parker. So tell us your story. I mean, actually, let's do that. Let's tell us how you went from creating Warby Parker and then onward to
shaving, just
to
right
shaving.
down the face.
Yeah. What's next?
That was the strategy. I don't know. Running out of room. So we started Warby Parker when I was in business school. Actually, I was sitting around after class with a few close friends, and one of my friends had been an investment banker working in healthcare prior to school and had seen all of these affordable health models be really successful, and had watched his girlfriend, who's also in our class, start to buy everything online: shoes and clothes and sunglasses, fashion accessories. And he just sort of had this idea, like, glasses seem like they're pretty expensive. Why couldn't you sell them direct to consumers online? And at the time, I had a $500 pair of Prada glasses that was literally being held together by like a piece of duct tape. I was a student. My prescription kept changing. I hadn't changed my glasses. I was like, man, there's a huge sort of customer pain point here. I'd love a new pair of glasses, but I don't really want to spend $500 for one right now. And a third one of my co-founders had worked in the eyewear industry before school and was like, I've been to the place where those glasses are made. You can make them for a fraction of that. And the reason glasses are so expensive is because there's a couple big companies that dominate the industry that essentially charge really high markups throughout the value chain. And so literally that was this one conversation that in many ways changed my life. Like went home, couldn't sleep that night, woke up the next day, I was like, guys, we should start this. We're not doing anything better in business school. Let's build a company. And we spent 2 years building Warby Parker, launched it in school, and I've been blown away by the response since day one. And then Harry's was started sort of in a similarly serendipitous way where my co-founder Andy had been a close friend of mine for 10 years. He went to a drugstore one night and needed just more razor blades and literally had to wait for 10 minutes to find a clerk to unlock the case where the razors were being held. I mean, has anyone else had like similar experience? Not great. And then he paid $25 for 4 blades and some shaving cream, felt ripped off. And was looking in his bag, and there was like, blister packaging, and it was super futuristic. There was like a razor flying over the moon. He's like, this just doesn't connect. Like, it doesn't appeal to me. I feel like it's broken. I don't know a lot about this, but some of the dynamics that exist here seem similar to Warby Parker. Called me, sort of felt the same way, and off we went to go build Harry's. So pretty serendipitous moments, I guess, that have gotten me excited and then led us to want to build these companies.
Sure, okay, and so in continuing the tour here, David, tell us about the transition of your business into, well, I mean, you sort of have always been in verticals, a deep focus in that, but...
So I joined this company in 2008. The company has brands that go back 100 years. It was a company when I joined it that was basically books and magazines, and that clearly was not a business model that had a lot of growth around it back in 2008, and doesn't today either. But when I looked at the company, what I found was that we had incredible assets. The businesses that we are in all cater towards enthusiasts, people who love to craft, people who love to paint, people who love to design, people who love to write. These things are their hobbies, it's their loves, it's how they de-stress. And so we had these enthusiasts in our database. We also had deep wells of content that could be easily digitized. And we had customer relationships, very deep relationships. So we decided that instead of trying to make a buck by continuing to sell advertising or to sell books, which we still do, we thought we could create an e-commerce business. And this is in 2008. And this is before any media company ever thought about doing e-commerce, a traditional media company. And if you fast forward now to 2014, that business will be a $60 million business in 2014. We have 30 stores. We get 20 million shoppers into these stores now annually. Transactions upwards of about 1 million transactions. We have SKUs of about 50,000 SKUs. So we are no longer really a media company, but we are a content and e-commerce company. But the key to it really was that we had these enthusiasts who were really, really dedicated to their passion and their hobby, and they still are. It's just a question of how you serve their passion.
Well, I think what's interesting when we were talking before is about what you're selling. You're not just selling, these are just to paint a picture, I think, so it's brands that are dedicated to enthusiasts in sewing or painting. Right. And in that painting sort of brand, what's the painting brand called?
Well, we have a number of brands, but Northlight Shop.
Northlight Shop, okay, great. So in that brand, you're selling not just paint brushes, but also online content and...
That's right. I mean, these stores, we looked at the business in 2008, and like then and now, it was dominated by Amazon. But Amazon is this massive place where you can buy anything and everything, and the prime reason you go there is for price, right? And that's still the case. We thought that if you're really enthusiastic about something, you needed a home, a place that you can go and you could be with other people who are very passionate about quilting, or very passionate about sewing. And you go to that home and you will get everything you need, from the needles, to the threads, to the books, to the magazines, to online education, to digital patterns. And we created this home for people. And it really resonated with the consumers. And we now serve around 8 to 9 million people within these stores. And but again, unlike in Amazon, these people come to the stores, they spend time, we curate the goods, we tell them what's hot, we tell them what's new. It's a more of a one-to-one relationship within the e-commerce environment.
So it's interesting. Chad's kind of you're in a similar place. I mean, this is a multi-market vertical business, and you're in a multi.
Yes.
How many merchants are there? And like,
There are 1.1 million sellers on Etsy.
so how do you facilitate 1.1 million verticals, so to speak?
Well, the way we think about Etsy, it's really, in the context of this conversation, it's a platform for really hyper verticals. And what do I mean by that? Or almost like super verticals. To give you an example of how vertical you can get on Etsy, one of our really successful sellers is a woman named Amy Michalik, who's based out of Rockford, Illinois, and her shop called Seams to You consists fully of baby neckties. So she's built a really strong business around baby neckties. We have another seller, Allison Fawn, in Fall River, Massachusetts, her shop is called Little Hero Capes. She makes superhero capes for kids. We have another seller here in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, called A Heirloom, and they make cutting boards in the shape of states and countries. So, Etsy is it's a marketplace of 1.1 million verticals, everything from food to furniture to fashion.
To a great degree, Chad's retailers are our consumers, because these are people who are incredibly passionate about somebody's neckties, but we serve babies' neckties. Not a big market, but we serve that audience of those consumers. So they will come to our stores to get some of the stuff they're going to do to create the product they're selling on Etsy.
Absolutely.
So, Stefan, you're sort of sitting back and picking these companies to invest in and start and fund. And how do you see them scaling? And how do you scale a vertical e-commerce business? What are the challenges?
Well, actually, if you see Burda's portfolio, many businesses have been started very early because Burda had a very large, or a relatively large fund for startup companies starting in 1999. And we did last year $1 billion in e-commerce company, like an investment we have in ZooPlus was 50.5%, as well as in consumer electronics. A lot of that business was built up from scratch by supporting good teams with good advice and making hundreds of individual decisions and just performing better than the market. And that's the reason why we have at some companies today a superior position. We also have acquired some businesses which have been later stage, which have been profitable, and then we scaled them, and they're same thing. And sometimes probably the biggest question you have is, how can you keep a sustainable competitive advantage? That's the main question we're looking into each business we have. Then, how can you really finance traffic growth, or how can you acquire customers? The classic traffic, that is really the big question if you want to scale it up. And third topic probably is, how can you find a world-class management team that stays in the company? Someone like Cornelius, who has been in the company around for more than almost 15 years. It's very unusual, because if you acquire a company later stage, usually the founders 2 years later is interested in buying a Porsche, a house, a boat, and everything around, which is okay. But then to find someone who is able to give so much energy in a company that it really keeps growing like the founder has grown the company, that is one of the biggest challenges we see in scaling the company, to find top management who really puts more efforts, more energy into the company than its competitors.
Thank you. So, David, you brought up Amazon, and we have to talk about Amazon because of they could just squash all of you, right? I mean, well, maybe not Etsy. I don't see them getting into the baby tie business. But for the rest of you, I mean, if you look at the diapers.com story from a few years ago, right? I think Bezos just sort of says, and then let's get him on price and beat him. And how do you survive in an Amazon dominant world? And what's your plan for that day when Jeff Bezos decides to nuke you?
Yes, I'll take that one first. Amazon are partners of ours, and we work with them, and I've been to visit them several times in Seattle, and we presented our business plan to them, actually. And one of the things they have told us, and we agree with, is that they are not very good at marketing to verticals. They're very good at marketing, very broadly, but to a great degree that's because price is their main point of emphasis. And so the way we can work with Amazon, and we're on Amazon Marketplace, I'm sure everybody is here, but one of the ways we can work with an Amazon and stay a little bit below that radar is that we are serving really the very tip of a consumer set. So if there are 10 million people who have picked up a sewing needle in the past 3 or 4 months, we're really going to the 750,000 who do it every day, who love it, who it's something that they can't live without. So we're really at the very tip of that curve. The other way we do it is that we bring a real highly curated model to our stores. Again, Amazon's a phenomenal storefront, but again, it's not so easy to search, to find. You have to kind of know what you want. When you come to our stores, we have writers and editors who are crafters, who are painters, who are looking at the store, who are looking at the markets, who are saying, this is a really cool new product. I want to bring this out here. I want our community to see this. And so we're constantly changing the product set, and we don't make any of this stuff anyway, so it's really to a great, some of it we make, some of the content we make, but it's really a way for our consumer to come to the store and be kind of guided through their hobby and their passion. So it's a different model.
I actually admire Amazon a lot. I think it's a fantastic company. How they have grown the business, I really admire them. But as a matter of fact, the behavior, how they buy stuff, for example, in our consumer electronics, and I'm sure Cornelius can add something for the pet food market as well, is if you go to the suppliers and ask them, and we have a consumer business and we buy stuff, we always hear they're so aggressive in listing something and listing it out. So for the supplier base, we get a lot of support, and we are probably in consumer electronics number 3 in the German market, after MediaMarkt Saturn, after Amazon, and then it's us. And we get a lot of support for our business because they want to have an alternative. And they want to have a local player who has a more direct relationship they can talk to, where they have people who stay and are willing to support us in many ways. So my feeling, there's also in our consumer electronics business something that people want to touch products. And they can do it in our stores. They can go in the big cities in a store, they can see the products, and you can't do that at Amazon. So our experience is, if it comes on sales on Amazon, consumer electronics, higher than 800 euros per item, people rather go to a shop to see the products, to touch it, and that helps us a lot. Amazon is going very difficultly into that market. They have a lot of restraints and problems to get into it.
Yeah, I really would like to follow the same perspective, saying the user experience at Amazon probably is perfect when it comes to delivery, but the whole shopping experience as such has vast limitations, especially when it comes to complex products or when it comes to categories that require a bit more, I would say, attention to detail, a bit more passion about the products. And this is why we just recently got elected as being the most satisfying shopping experience across all categories in Germany, ahead of Amazon. So I'm a little bit annoyed without wanting to sound arrogant by that question. Well, what would you do if Amazon steps in? They stepped in all of our markets, but in fact, in none of the markets where they stepped in, they stopped us from growing, and none of the markets they're offering a better consumer experience in our category. So they're big, but that doesn't necessarily make them the best ones. Our customers seem to agree.
So Amazon isn't in the high-end shaving equipment business yet, but probably people didn't think they'd get into diapers delivered to doors, business either.
Yeah. For us, I think we view ourselves as a brand.
Yeah.
And we happen to be fully vertically integrated in that we make our own product and we sell on our website. But I mean, we wouldn't be really interested in this today, but we would view Amazon as a retail partner of ours, not a competitor. And yeah, I don't think that it's in the future for them to buy a razor manufacturer and then make their own blades. In fact, there actually really isn't a better one for them to buy in the world. So we feel pretty good about the defensibility of our business today.
That's an interesting topic, owning the supply chain. We'll get to that in a second. I just want to hear, I mean, I guess, again, maybe Amazon does get interested in that.
Well, we consider Amazon a competitor in the sense that when people decide to buy things, they may buy them on Amazon, they may buy them on Etsy. But we don't really compete with Amazon when we talk about price and convenience. You would never go to Etsy and see, lowest price, 20% off, like any kind of discounting language. And I just ordered an iPad case from Maker in Germany, and it took about a month to get it. But it was really amazing and really unique. So I think for the buyers, you're getting something that you simply, literally can't buy on Amazon. The other thing that I think makes us different from Amazon is, I'll give you an example. We just launched a wholesale program where we're helping our sellers sell into local retail, and in some cases larger retail. And we don't use our scale to put pricing pressure on our suppliers. We think that we can create a win-win situation where our suppliers can get a fair price and sell to retail. The buyers get something that's really unique, but we don't use our scale to kind of push down on the smaller vendors.
I also wanted to ask you, Etsy's made a different choice than F+W to not curate and sort of select products too much, right? Do I have that right?
We have a merchandising team and we do curation internally, but we have over 20 million items in the marketplace. Okay. So we use a lot of buyer curation, making lists and that kind of thing. So it's kind of a community curated site.
Community curated, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so actually, Jeff, one thing I did want to get into, make sure we got to, was just going from Warby Parker to then Harry's. It's one is such a runaway success, and the other one's so new. I mean, I wonder what lessons you learned from Warby Parker starting another e-commerce vertical business. What have you learned from the one?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that seems really obvious is just make sure that each one of your customers has as good an experience as they possibly can. Just try to treat them with amazing love and caring, and that'll go a long way. They can end up doing a lot of your early marketing for you. I think one of the things that was amazing at Warby Parker that we found when we were the early customer service reps for the company was that it was pretty tricky to buy glasses online. It was a pretty unfamiliar process for people. They didn't exactly know how to do it. Sometimes it took 10 or 15 emails or phone calls to get somebody through the entire process of finding a pair of glasses, doing a home try-on, getting their prescription, getting it verified at their doctor, getting the right prescription from our lab, and then getting it to them and making them happy, making sure the frames were adjusted to fit their face, and the entire process. And in those 10 or 15 emails, we got to actually develop close personal relationships with our customer in a kind of very old school way, in the way that you might with an old shopkeeper at a store. And I think our customers early on were blown away by that experience, or at least I think pleasantly surprised relative to other experiences that they'd had with direct companies. And that enabled them or motivated them to go tell the world about what we were doing, which was really powerful. And so, we tell our customer experience team at Harry's that they're the most important people at the company. They really are. We hire amazing people into those roles, pay them well, and want to make sure that that we can give people amazing experiences. We email every single one of our customers after they buy from us, telling them that we're here for them and we love them. And it's kind of an important part of our culture at both companies. It's probably the most important.
And now to flip it around a little bit, I mean, what did you think would be something that you learned at Warby Parker that ended up sort of not proving to be the case at Harry's?
Yeah, I mean, I think Warby Parker, fundamentally, we're building kind of a fashion and lifestyle brand, which is awesome. I think it's a great space to play in. And at Harry's, we're building a consumer products company and brand. It's only focused on guys today. Warby Parker's go ahead, but more importantly, it has to really perform. It has to work. And so we can make a handle that looks better and nicer, but if it actually doesn't work better, then we're not really giving our customers what they want. And so we think a lot about creating products that are stylish, but doing it in service of function, which I think is a little bit different than how you might think about building sort of a consumer lifestyle brand. The other thing is just that the market dynamics are such that in shaving, there's very few people who actually can make razor blades, and so it made sense for us to want to own the whole supply chain, whereas with glasses, there's just much more availability of high quality eyewear supply, so we didn't have to go as far back. And so the Harry's company looks very different today than Warby Parker, just based on sort of the industry dynamics, and we've had to adapt to that.
It seems like a requirement of building a strong vertical e-commerce business is having this brand. You actually talked about it, Cornelius. How do you think about brand, and how do you build it?
The real brand owner sits next to me here. If you really have a product which is exclusively yours, that is truly vertical. As a retailer, we're a pipe. We're just instrumental for the customer to get the real brands. What we do is give a good customer experience, but we don't believe so much in building a nice brand. That probably for a retailer does not really resonate. What we really focus on is conversion and retention. If that later on translates into a brand that is positively charged with the customer, it's nice. But making us just known is basically not of a big value for a retailer. A retailer really has to make sure that the people that visit the website instantly transform into shoppers, and in our business model, that people that buy once buy many times. And around that simple strategy, we were able to develop the business at a persistent rate between 25 and 50%. Then it's basically just a matter of time waiting till you eventually become big. Once you're big, it's helpful that if you get bigger, you should also get better for the customer. But then a brand begins to establish with the customer. But advertising and brand building upfront would not work for us. It probably works a lot better if you have a real product, but we're a retailer, just retailers. That's it.
Stefan, talk about how you manage internationalizing these various companies and make hard decisions. I think there's an interesting one in particular with Zing, which is your vertical, and it's like LinkedIn of Germany, basically, right? I mean, you made some interesting choices there. Could you talk about?
Yeah, actually, the challenge we have is that in every market we are in, we usually have one big German competitor and at least one international one. So with Holiday Check, it is TripAdvisor. In Germany, actually, Steve Kaufer, the CEO of TripAdvisor, made 4 years ago a public statement in Germany to one of our large daily newspapers and said, "We killed in every country all competitors." He said it more nicely, but that was the message. And we're going to wipe out those German guys, that Holiday Check, in 24 months. And we made a clear decision that whatever it takes, we stay ahead. And today, if you see the auditing, the traffic audited, we are 30% ahead of TripAdvisor. Same ratio as 4 years ago when he made the remark, knowing that the company has exploded from that time from 10 million euro now to 120 million euro. So if it comes to internationalization, then it's a very different topic we talk, and there are lots of challenges. I mean, if I just now run on the TripAdvisor example. So Steve Kaufer, it's now a listed company. He scaled in North America. He's making $600 million EBITDA, according to the figures last year. And he's able to spend $50 million per year in new markets. And he invested alone in France 40 million. I don't know whether that information is public, but some resources said that. And we make with Holiday Check 25 million euro EBITDA. So how can you compete to a competitor who invest in one area, in 1 year, more than we make for the whole group profits, EBITDA. So the challenge is, from my perspective, to have a very individual way if we go into markets. We have to find local teams. Sometimes we acquire, so we acquired for 50 million euros companies in the Netherlands, in France, and we're trying to build a business there. Some are successful now, some aren't. A lot has to do with timing. So Cornelius was one of the first guys who really started his business internationally, rolled it out international. The earlier you are, the less it costs. It is clear. The faster you internationalize sometimes, the more sustainable brand you build. Cornelius, even if you say it's a supply channel, but I think you build a brand to the consumer. And so we really have to look to find very smart ways into some markets and to grow there very fast, double digit. And up to now, it works with all the challenges we see.
Etsy has offices overseas. How are you doing that? What's your plan there?
Sure. So Etsy's really been international from the beginning, and about 1/3 of transactions cross an international border. And we've translated the site into 9 languages now, and there are sales in 200 plus countries. So literally every country in the world. And what we've done, I think, is a pretty classic model. We built local marketing teams in the top markets. For example, I was just in Canada earlier this week visiting the office there. And local marketing, local PR, local kind of advertising, marketing development. And we really build the communities that way. I mean, the way Etsy started really was these offline craft fairs that you would see everywhere, Brooklyn, Portland, Berlin. We essentially took those online, and I think that model has been really the model that we've followed in other countries. And fortunately, craft fairs have been around for literally thousands of years, so that model really works. Build the seller community on the supply side who already have marketing kind of built in, word of mouth, telling their friends, and that helps you build the buyer demand.
Jeff, I meant to get back to it, and I really wanted to. You're an e-commerce company, a web company, a startup. You don't think of those sorts of things as owning factories. You own a factory. How and why did that come to be?
Yeah, so after we had the idea for Harry's, the next thing we had to figure out was how to make high-quality product. And for like 6 months after we had the idea, we couldn't find a product that we actually would be proud to sell. We went through a pretty arduous process of literally A/B testing on our faces, like one side versus the other, every product in the market, and it was a disaster in large part. And then finally we found this company in Germany. They're a 94-year-old manufacturer of blades. They sort of grew up making those double-edged blades that you put into safety razors. And I found them one night like on a shaving blog in Europe. I was sort of obsessed with figuring out how to make a razor blade that we could sell. And found them, had them send us some product, really liked it, developed a partnership with them. And at that point, we realized they were going to be our sole supplier. And so that was both an opportunity and risk in our business. And we sort of had this mutual exclusivity. We launched, we were blown away by the response, excited that customers felt the same way about the product that we did. Immediately wanted to start to innovate and make changes. Realized that we were still pretty small in their base, and so we weren't going to be able to do that. And then, had the opportunity, talked to a bunch of investors, had the opportunity to raise the money to buy them so that we could drive forward that innovation and limit risk in our business and try to sort of achieve this vision. There's only 2 other companies in the world that have brands and make their own products. They're Gillette and Schick. They're both multiple billion-dollar businesses, and so now we're number 3, and that's an exciting place to be. We're obviously much smaller, but I think that there's a massive opportunity ahead for us. And part of that, maybe how we got the money, was a little bit of trickery and, trying to just, convince people of this crazy idea that a few people ended up falling for it, which was fortunate for us, I guess.
There are 2 competitors in the online. It's interesting that there are, but there are 2 competitors in the online men's shaving equipment space. Bevel, which is the new one, from Tristan Walker, and also the Dollar Shave Club. And they were not mentioned by you as the ones that also own a brand and their own factories. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think to us, we feel like product quality is, the most important thing. We sort of talked about the fact that you have to have something that works, like it's metal that you're putting to your face. And so for us to be able to be fully vertically integrated, own, this amazing capability to make razors better than most everybody in the world, we think, and then to be able to make them better, we think just gives us a tremendous advantage over everybody kind of long term. And that's, if we just focus on that, making amazing products, making customers happy, we feel like a lot of the rest of it will kind of take care of itself.
For what it's worth, I was a customer of Dollar, and I switched over to Harry's. Okay. It really is better product.
We have 2 Harry's customers on the stage because Chad is also. What's it like?
We appreciate it.
You get.
It's really nice. It's beautiful. I was telling Jeff I'm going to be giving those for holiday gifts, along with lots of Etsy gift cards.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to reciprocate on Etsy and F+W, so it's good. We can create a little holiday gift basket up here, throw in some pet supplies, and call it a day.
Always be selling, even on a panel.
That's what the panel's for, right? Okay, so tell me, let's talk about the marketing mix. I mean, Facebook, Twitter, Google, is that where it's working these days? Is there anything new and exciting that's sort of the place to...
I'm going to plug Jeff here. I was telling Jeff that I actually bought my Harry's shaving set because I kept seeing the ads on Facebook. And I'm a fairly ad-resistant person, but yeah, your ads look great. They're targeted well, and so it seems to be working, at least focus group of one.
Yeah, for our company, because we serve these very distinct group of enthusiasts, they become their own marketing channel. Because when you are really passionate about something and you do it with other people and you want to talk about it and so forth, you talk about the things that are important to you and the stores you go to and the vendors you use. And as I said, because our brands have been around for so long in many cases, the marketing is done when we use Facebook and Pinterest and Twitter and all the avenues everybody up here uses. But we have our enthusiasts that are really our best marketers.
I just want to agree with that. Etsy, we have 1.1 million sellers. They're all marketing themselves. I was visiting my brother and found out that my nephew was selling jewelry on Etsy. And I went to the bathroom and came back, and he had sold a piece of jewelry on Etsy to my wife. So that's happening 1.1 million times, around the world.
So we spend over all border asset approximately 150 million euros marketing spending. And actually, the whole landscape is changing at the moment. So 2 years ago, we probably would have spent 80 to 90% on Google, on them. And we see with the massive overspending, or let's say with the massive investment of venture capitalists into some companies, it's becoming, and also media companies going more aggressive in investing into their digital asset. It becomes very competitive to be profitable with Google. And we have to find new ways of attracting traffic and customers. So we have grown very heavily affiliate, which is really an old model, but which is working. We have used new companies like Criteo, which are growing very rapidly. We have a lot of experience now with Facebook. We spend 5-6 million on Facebook of all companies, and it doesn't convert. So we don't see direct transactions, but we see that a brand is built and is growing. And of course, we spend a lot of money on TV and print, the print magazines we have in our house, but also we spend a lot on TV because that still converts if you do it very professionally. That you have a good spot, that you really set up a good design, you test it, you track it, and then it works. But the media split is changing because Google is becoming we have in some companies now 30 million keywords we play. And it's becoming very expensive in some areas like travel, like matchmaking, to make a profitable customer because of the competitiveness. So we have to find ways for higher media efficiency and to try to transfer money in other areas.
And in ZooPlus in particular?
We're in a very comfortable position. If we don't do any advertising at all, we still grow. And that is because we have network effects with our customer base, or they say a more modern term for word of mouth, which is probably the most efficient advertising tool that you can have. With such high levels of retention that 90% of previous year's revenues of customer cohorts 2 years and older returns. But this is not the whole truth. Out of each customer that we have for a couple of years in our database, we generate a fraction of that, but an important fraction as new customers. So in fact, we could grow the business without doing any advertising at all. Many businesses are not structured that way, but the only thing that we know is if you add advertising on top, try to stay within the media. So if you go for TV advertising, we don't think it's terribly efficient. If you use anything outside the internet, probably you are losing quite a bit of efficiency. If you stay within the net, then of course it makes sense to shift between the different tools and stay ahead of the competition, because basically it's crowding out. So the moment other push into Google, your efficiency relatively falls, and then probably you have to come up with something new. But best of all, keep the customer happy, stay focused on the product, make sure that the website converts all incoming traffic. Most of us worry too much about bringing in new traffic. It's an illusion that extra traffic comes with the same quality. Usually you have degrading quality, so better to boost conversion and boost loyalty. That's my recommendation.
Jeff, I mean, you've converted at least once off of Facebook, so. But seriously though, where is it coming from? Where are you worrying about marketing?
Yeah, I mean, I think to us the most efficient. I guess first of all, I think marketing mix changes as you grow. I mean, we're only a year old, so the answer. And I'm really envious of these guys, some of these guys' businesses up here, that they have such amazing network effects and word of mouth. That's incredible. I think we tried to sort of have the same thing. And at Warby Parker, it's really compelling. At Harry's, we've invested more in direct marketing earlier, and we've been successful with it. And to us, the most effective channel is PR. And so as a young company, it's really valuable because you can target places that are what we think of as really credible sources, and they can help you tell your story in a long form way that can really connect with customers. And we've seen that just be so important in our first year. And we invest a lot in it and invest in creating stories within the company that we can then tell to the outside world that reinforce one of the brand principles that we might have. And then I think as it relates to direct, like we try a lot. I think Facebook is a really interesting channel in that, to Chad's point, you can be super targeted. So we can just create a ton of different filters to get to Chad. I was trying to exactly target Chad with that ad, but and then what we find is it may not be the first ad that you hit them with, but if you can sort of refresh creative often enough and tell a story with a couple of different messages in sequence, that that one of those messages will likely be persuasive over time against a certain number of people in a really highly targeted audience. And so we've been able to get the math to really work well for us so far.
So there's a trend with companies like Facebook, and even today Foursquare did this, where they're taking an app that had all sorts of functionality and unbundling it. And in a way that's sort of feature verticals, right? So I'm just wondering if this says something about the way people use mobile, and I'm wondering if it has anything, if there's something there in terms of the way people shop on mobile. And we're sort of running out of time, so brief answers. But David, I mean, how do you think about mobile, and how do people, how does it work in there?
Well, for some of our communities, we are doing some R&D on developing applications where the application will enable you to go into it, and this is in sewing in particular, and you can find a pattern within that application because it's digital, and then within the application itself you can order the goods that you need to make that pattern. And the attraction to the application is that rather than just being in our stores, it'll be everywhere. So that's how kind of we're looking at the application market right now.
Actually, like I say, it's pretty disruptive at the moment, the whole mobile thing. And if we talk about mobile, I talk about smartphones, because behavior between stationary internet or browsers and iPads is not very different from our perspective, what the user journey is. If you look at smartphones, that's a total new business. So our news sites now are growing massively. Also Zing, which is LinkedIn in Germany, is growing massively on mobile. But the conversions, how they go, are totally different. People behave different. And we also see different ways how people shop. The whole funnel we had in the past is being changed. And the media model, how you get traffic on your mobile site, is not working as efficient as today the whole industry is working on the usual web or on mobile sites who go with your pads. So there has to be a lot more done in the next 24 months to really develop monetization, advertising model for the advertising market on mobile, to to examine how you can get your target group and to acquire traffic, that it works. And I see mobile as a huge chance, because if you really build an app and that is installed, you get customers much more often by one click before typing something in. So the brands who really have started to do the mobile business with an app very early, they are now very successful, gaining traction, rather than those brands who come later. And it's a big opportunity if we overcome the hurdle of the business model, or let's say the stream of how we create businesses there.
Well, I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you very much. It was great.
Thank you.
Thanks.